Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Centurion Leadership Battalion podcast, your source of accountability, inspiration, and motivation to become your best and reach your fullest potential every day. Our motto, it's simple: to use our determination to crush our everyday leadership tasks so that we dominate in our delivery of services and products to our clients and achieve victory and personal growth, profitability, and creating environments for those around us to prosper. Let's get this show started.
Welcome to the Centurion Leadership Battalion podcast. This is your host, Alaina, and your host, Justin. We're so excited to have you on for our Q&A episode today. Hi, Justin. I'll let you say hi to the audience.
Hi, everyone. How's it going today? Hope everyone's doing well. Spring is coming, that's for sure. So that's pretty awesome. Make everyone more positive, I hope.
Absolutely. I think the change in the weather has been so nice. We finally have some 70, 80-degree days here, and then we go back down to the 40s next week. So really trying to soak it up. It's actually holiday weekend. It's Easter weekend when we're recording this, or it will be Easter weekend. It's not Easter weekend currently, but just a good spring energy in the air, and we're excited to get this episode out for you guys. Please don't forget, you can always leave us a rating and a review wherever you listen on whatever streaming service you choose. We greatly appreciate this feedback because it helps us know what's working, what you guys like to hear more of, and the ways that we can change and improve our content. So thank you so much for taking a few seconds, if you're not behind the wheel of a car, to get that feedback over to us.
All the downloads and everything, that if everyone could also respond and give comments and 5-star reviews or whatever they are, 4 stars depending on what website you're on or what podcast channel you use. But please, it's working, whatever you guys are doing. Everyone who's listening in and the loyal fans, obviously the numbers are climbing, so much appreciation for sure.
Absolutely. So thank you all so much. And before I drag on our intro any longer, talking about things like the weather, I will go ahead and introduce our question for today. So today's question is, what is the difference between a team manager versus a team leader?
It's a good question. So Alaina, what do you think from a definition standpoint a team leader is versus a team manager?
Well, off the top of my head, I would say, a manager and a leader are two words you would describe or use to describe a person who is in charge of a team of some sort, a company, a brand, a business. But when you're even saying the word, right, manager, the key word in that is manage. So you're just managing people. And then leader, the key word in there is lead. So you're actually leading people to, a common goal or to a different place, to a different mindset, all of these things. So I think just in the words themselves and the titles themselves, we can learn a lot from the differences of them, where a manager is someone who delegates versus a leader is someone who probably obviously leads, but coaches or, brings people together to reach for a common goal for overall improvement. I think that those are the things that stick out to me right off the bat, and we'll get into more of that in a second, but I'll let you share what you believe the main differences are just off the top of your head.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So to me, leadership transcends all parts of an organization, and leaders transcend outside of organizations. So even a manager is very defining to me, whether it's manager of a sports team or manager of a company or a department within a company. They're very specific. And even though an executive is kind of a manager in a business management, it's not the same as a manager or a director. And I think that, we often think we use the term business management in school and stuff like that to give it a classification, but generally, business manager is different than a business director, than a business executive, and so on and so forth, if you really break it down, at least in our organizations. Because a manager is actually managing the tasks and the goals on a little more of a minute level, meaning that a manager is not necessarily a supervisor. But a supervisor supervises whatever the activity is. If you're in a production facility like ours, or in, depending on your business, call center, stuff like that, they have supervisors. So they work over small teams supervising the activity. They're not really leading specifically, they're just supervising and giving eyes over and documentation to the activities that the individuals they supervise are doing. So then you have a manager. A manager sort of like manages the supervisor. So manager is like, he's controlling the activities within that area. He's making sure all the supervisors work well together. At least in our instance, he or she, sorry, I generalized there. But it's, managers exist. There's usually multiple managers of functions within departments such as operations, information technology, marketing, advertising, so on and so forth, accounting. So you have your managers. And so they're actually managing things. They're not necessarily leading. Because at that point, a manager is still managing and administering the activities of the business. And it depends on where an organization goes from here. Like for us, it goes into like coordinators and directors. And coordinators and directors, obviously, just by the title, are coordinating the activities amongst multiple managers or departments. Or directors are directing an entire department, or so on and so forth. And our executives sort of get into more of the leadership and the strategy. However, all the way down to the bottom of our organization, we consider people team leaders. So that's the interesting part about the question is if we broke it down into team leaders and team managers, the question, we have managers, but they don't span the whole organization, where team leaders spanned almost the entire organization. We have team members, and then we have team leads, and then supervisors, but all employees or team members are trained to be leaders in the organization, or team leaders when they have to, if they need to step up for an activity. So it's an interesting thing, at least for me, because I look at it as two separate characteristics, no different than Alaina said. And I think both are extremely important if you're a manager, to be able to lead and manage, being able to tie together what's being directed or coordinated with you. One's direction and one's coordination with something else, hence why we use the term coordinator and director. And at least to me, because I like things very black and white. And with the human mind, you sometimes leave too much gray area. It leads to a lot of questions. If it's very black and white like that, it makes sense. And then the leadership, just by the sheer term, I think just transcends all organizations, all households, all countries, so on and so forth. So therefore, by definition, every human should be a team lead, especially of their own team that lives inside their own body and all the voices in their head. So, that's where, you hear terms like CEO of your own life, or, so team lead is more like everyone should be the team lead and be prepared to lead their team at any time based on their skill set. Even in your family, not every family member has the same skill set. So that's my rough generalization. And I actually got through that pretty fast, impressively. But what do you think about that, Alaina, in terms of how I described it?
I think, when we're discussing managers versus leaders, I don't want anyone to take it the wrong way, because maybe we have people listening to this podcast in their role within their organization, or, their resume actually says they are a manager, and that's your, management is something you study in college. Managers are people pretty much in every big corporation and business. So I think when we're discussing manager versus leader, we do not mean that in a derogatory sense at all. I think we're really talking about the characteristics of, the terms when we're talking about the types of managers or the types of leaders that there are. And I think there are two two types of managers, whether, you are someone who leans more towards the management side or the leadership side. I think, you can be a manager by trade, but also be a leader in that position for people that are on your team or that you're leading. And I did some research on the topic, and there's a few key differences between manager styles versus leader styles. And I want to share a few of those and see if it generates any more conversation or thought. But managers believe in status quo, but leaders believe in experimentation. Managers focus on efficiency, leaders focus on empowerment. Managers lead with authority, and leaders develop people. Managers develop processes, and leaders lead with influence. Managers know it all, leaders have a growth mindset. Managers delegate, leaders coach, and managers improve weaknesses, and leaders focus on strengths. And I think that those are all very, very interesting points. They tend to be really polar opposite for each of those, but I think it's very true. When you are thinking of someone who you would consider a leader or a mentor, you probably would think that they do focus on your strengths versus just improving on your weaknesses. And if you are, more manager style of leadership, you just want people to improve to get by. But if you're really a leader style of leadership, you want people to focus on their strengths and continue to have that self growth. Like it says, you don't want to just develop processes, you want to develop people. And I think that was very interesting to read about.
I agree. And let me put it to the crowd this way, and I know no one wants to hear this, but this is actually reality when we really face it. Is we have managers, and there are successful managers in teams out there always, and I'm not being derogatory in any way. They manage their teams really well, but they aren't necessarily their team leaders. There's a person on their team or someone on their team that's more organized or more mindset. And while that person manages well, the team is actually being led by someone who's not the manager. Sometimes in the Army, that's like a second, that you have like a second lieutenant leading, and they have a sergeant or whatever that is actually the leader of the team, where the lieutenant's more of the manager and the director of everything. And so I just think that as we identify this and we think about it, the goal is to both be a good team manager and a team leader. But there are, and I've been there as a manager, where I got so focused on managing processes and all that and not putting enough emphasis. And here's the simple difference between a manager and a leader. A manager makes sure you get it done. No doubt, hit the goals, get it done. A good manager does that. Leaves at the end of the day, victory is in accomplishing the task. A good team manager and a good team leader, like to Alaina's point, does develop their team, but they also give that team purpose. That team understands why they do it. They understand the brick that they carry that continues to build that organization, and they value that brick that they carry every day, and they place every day in the foundation and mortar into it. And so that's the big difference. And in the world of business, we get all the foundations and we understand business management very well by the time we get out of college, because that's what we should know. But as we get into our career as businessmen and women, if we're going to say that, or whatever organization we're in, we should continually just strive to be more than just managers. We should strive to be leaders and directors and coordinators and executives. And again, it's not derogatory, but I think we fail to see that when we learn business management and we use the term so broadly that it's actually just a stepping stone if you want to continue to grow. And leadership transcends all of it. However, without management, without coordination, without direction, without delegating, like we talked about as a manager, and without being able to be an executive, which really takes pulling your hands back and trusting and listening and not being able to actually do anything in your business sometimes. Like you want to do hands-on. And so all of those skills to this question have to be developed along the way. The leadership part's important because you need to be able to lead yourself, but you also need the management part, or you can't coordinate or direct or even be an executive. And if you don't go through all the stepping stones, like honestly, I don't know how you lead someone without understanding their plight. Just me. I know there's plenty of people that out there that do it and do it very successfully and come in and do whatever and great. But I don't care if Food Service Partners was $100 million company. If we're absorbing or acquiring a company or partnering with a company or taking on a new client, I will probably be there just based on the emphasis that needs to happen and spend the time to get to learn the business and know the people. That's leadership. That's not management. That's not being executive, that director or coordinator. That's just being an entrepreneur and needing to learn the business so I can be a successful leader. The rest, the management, the coordination, the direction, that starts to come down with starting to trust people and rely on them in their positions. So how do you develop good team managers to be good team coordinators and good team directors? You start giving them more tasks like that. You start having them come up to your team and working with you and giving direction on your behalf with other members. Or you rotate the leader, you get all of your team managers together and you rotate who leads the meetings and start to see who's going to be an actual director or a coordinator. So one of the things I think is so important when we talk about terms is there's a reason definitions, at least in the English language, if not all languages, have such different meaning and we have such different words for them. And why we say the management structure of a company is the entire org chart. That is true. It's the entire organization that manages the organization. In some ways, they also direct it, lead it, visionary thread it, whatever, give it core values. So there's a lot of things that in business is than just management or a management structure, especially in today's age with the distance we have with people working at home. Like our structures are changing, they become more flat, at least in my experience. And with that, the organization getting flatter, your managers are having to take on more leadership roles, and the jump and promotion in organization that flattens out to adjust to the world like ours does, there's faster room for growth for the individual and promotion for the individuals because the company can grow in a flatter organization. So why I like this question is if you train everyone in your organization to be team leads, not just the team managers, your organization thrives. And here in Georgia, I spend weekly amount of time. We go over leadership and personal development and anything we can with all the employees, not just about their skill set or their job or just talk about food or marketing or advertising or whatever it is. We try to broaden the human experience because we only have so much time, and that takes team leadership development. But management development, that takes organization and skills in a different way. So leadership may be organizing tasks and goals around a vision and a long-term goal, where managing is a lot of managing what's right in front of you or the day-to-day things that just happen. And so that's a big difference in how you break that, and both are equally possible. As you grow as an entrepreneur or a business person, it's harder and harder to be a team manager and be a team leader. And when you're trying to be an executive in your company or direct your company as it grows, that was a hard transition for me, for sure. As food service partners grow and we had subsidiaries and started running, it was hard for me to let go of things or grow into another position or understand that I couldn't keep my hands on everything and manage everything. It was hard. I would have to trust other people to manage and lead and run and direct while another subsidiary would come along that would require my attention to build and develop the managers and develop the leaders to lead that company so I could go do the next one. And along the way, I learned mistakes, of course. Sometimes I left them too early. Sometimes I left them too late. Sometimes I didn't build the structure properly. It was all learning lessons along the way. But what I do know for sure is that the terms and the names that you use in your organization from the very beginning are part of the culture and part of the words that have meaning and give people pride that they want. I don't necessarily care about titles, but I can tell you in our organization, as we've started getting the titles right to what I'm talking about and actually defining them properly as we've always done, but doing it across the whole company and unifying and becoming more flat, people are taking more pride in their title. It's good that people want that. I'm not saying it should be all about that, but it's important. Like I earned the right to be a director. I earned the right to be a manager. I earned the right to be a team leader. So as long as there's incentive and encouragement and understanding in what the levels are, it's great. But if we classify it all as management or managers, no, not to be derogatory, as to Alaina's point, it just loses the upward mobility that we all should be striving for. And it robs us, each one of us, of the mental picture and vision that it requires to take the proper stepping stones to be an executive. And 24 years later, food service partners and, being an entrepreneur and mowing lawn since I was, a kid. I don't know. I can't tell you that there's any other way. And that if you don't step on every stepping stone along the way, you don't make very good executives. And people that I've robbed by moving up too quickly or not putting them in the back long enough or promoting them too quickly without them having enough earning or realizing that they've earned it or tying the win and the promotion to effort and belief in their future potential, it can backfire. So if we're really going to talk about it, and this is not the question, but I feel I should answer it, is the proper way to develop people is always giving them incentives. Don't wait every year. Don't wait every other year. You've got to figure out how to build a structure, and we're starting to get really good at this at Food Service Partners. It's taken a long time to figure it all out with all the subsidiaries and everything, how to unify everything. But we're getting really good at how to actually build not a management structure, but a leadership structure where the leadership is the structure we built. And it's for the purpose of leadership, not management. And are there managers and executives and directors and coordinators and all of the quote unquote management positions in there? Absolutely. But the future businesses of tomorrow, honestly, and any entrepreneur who's going to continue to challenge himself to be competitive like I am, is going to see that management structures are a thing of the past, that you need to be building leadership structures. And what that looks like is maneuverable vessels or departments or teams that are smaller and more maneuverable. Just to start off with. but it also means that you're giving a lot more leadership decisions and you're training kids coming out of college with a lot more leadership responsibility than just management responsibility. And you're getting involved in the growth of their homes and their families and stuff like that, so they can be well-rounded humans and leaders in your organization and in their home. Because how is a person in your organization going to be the best leader possible? They have to be the best leader at home and in their community and at their kids' sports games. And they should be able to have the time to have a well-rounded life, to have a visionary thread of leadership. At least that's my belief, right? Obviously, I wouldn't be doing it still 24 years later or developed it to the extent that we have. And winning teams, it doesn't always look pretty. And when you're a leadership style company, things can get a little disorganized because you're not emphasizing as much on the management. But over time, those leaders put in the processes that will manage your company based on leadership management. And I say this, and I'm giving a lot away here. Like, this is a big one that I probably shouldn't even get out there because I'm really opening the book on this one. Is that if you want leader managers, as Alaina referred to at the beginning of the podcast, you have to have a leadership structure, not a management structure. And I know everyone thinks it's interchangeable. It's just not. And I really, if people can contemplate what that is and what I'm talking about and start to really think about what the difference is between if you were to build a leadership structure in your company or as an entrepreneur versus a management structure, it would look a lot different. Your company would grow faster, but it would also manage things better because your leadership would be also driving that management of the business they were creating or the betterment of the world they were creating. Because if you really start to look at a leadership structure, it's not only about your business, it becomes about the growth of the humans, it becomes about the betterment of the community around that business and the environment. So if we really dive deep, I think you'll see that there are companies out there who are making a difference. Some of them publicly traded, most of them not, that are going to be the biggest companies we've probably ever seen on a global scale because they've gone after the leadership structure aspect that I'm talking to. They turned their humans not into great managers only, but they started off turning them into great leaders first. And then they taught them to be managers or executives or directors. But we tend to do things in the opposite order, especially because the way our curriculum is in school, where we teach management first before leadership. And so as an organization, what we're trying to do, what I've been trying to do, or why Centurion Leadership Battalion even was created, was for exactly this purpose. And it just happened that I happened to start doing it over the last 10-ish years also, as as well as a lot of other people have been doing it. And have we lost a lot of great managers along the way because they didn't like this change? Yep, we did. And did I lose a lot of great clients because they didn't like the switch to our leadership style versus management style and trying to do more and serve better food and healthier food for the planet? Yep, that happened too. And does that make me a hypocrite in some ways where I'm like, I always want to take care of my employees? It does. but I don't know how the business would have survived in the long run if we would have stuck with just managing the business and managing the clients and managing our customers. So, that's just me. So thank you, Alaina. I love the question, and I apologize if anyone can hear my dogs playing around in the background. They've wandered into the room. So um, they make very weird noises when they're playing with one another. So I apologize. But
I
thank you.
did
I
not hear
love the
dogs.
question. I didn't know how you thought about that as well. What I said there, or if you can even see it in food service partners now that I just sort of let the wizard out from behind the curtain.
Yeah, definitely. I think, well, first of all, I did not hear the dogs playing, but we have a lot of dogs behind the scenes of our podcast. So people are more than likely to hear a dog barking, a dog running across the floor, a toy squeaking at one point or another. But I think my microphone usually does a pretty good job of filtering that out. Anyways, yeah, so I think it was really interesting hearing, from your perspective, just the way that you have structured, your in your own leadership in your own company. Definitely so interesting to hear. And I I really enjoyed this topic because I think it's important to think about in any role, whether you are a manager or a leader or not. We talk a lot about leading in your home and how these podcasts can be applied to people who even, you may be in the car with your spouse that's in a management or leadership position and they play this and you're like, well, this doesn't apply to me. I'm going to tune it out because I don't work. Maybe you stay home. I don't know what your situation is, but even this topic can really be applied to how you behave in your own life. Are you a manager of your relationships or a leader in your relationships, right? Are you a manager with your kids or are you a leader with your kids? And I always try to bring these topics back to the ways people can relate in personal life. While it is a business podcast and we are on the business charts, I think it's really important to reach a broader audience than that and allow people to see themselves through the lens of, I do lead and I do have an influence, and how I behave and think and process thought and, choose my behaviors. It really does make a difference. So I just like to, listen to what you shared about the way you structure your companies and your brands and businesses, and the way that, we can take away those examples. We can take away everything that we discussed and apply them into other parts of our lives, such as relationships, parenting, friendship, maybe in your church or in your community, whatever it is. So that was my main focus with thinking through this topic and really understanding the difference between a manager mindset and a leader mindset. And I just want to reiterate, as if we didn't already, that if your turn or the way that you describe your job or your business card says manager, we are not looking down on managers at all. We are simply using this as a tool to discuss, management style of leadership versus a leadership style of leadership, if that makes clear sense. I just don't want to be over. Sometimes I think our topics can get a little confusing, especially that one. So I really wanted to make that clear for everybody listening. But I really enjoyed this topic. I really enjoyed, diving into this. It reminds me a lot of what I learned in school, just studying business. And, you actually learn about the different styles of management and leadership in school, usually when you're studying business. So that it was all just really, really interesting to me. But I will let you, Justin, close us out. And if you had any final thoughts on that or anything I just shared, and then we'll let everyone off to have a great day.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it. And I think what I was really trying to do for everyone is, if you don't have a definition of a team lead or a team manager in your organization and you don't understand the difference in the definition, that is probably a good place to start. Because while I gave my definition and what I believe, the organization you live in or the position you're a manager in, or whatever, vice president, whatever that means, you guys have to figure out what it means in your organization. I'm just telling you, for me, for anyone looking into our organization, for anyone that is coming into our organization, it's started to make things a lot easier as we've made these giant transitions over the last 10 years.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much for listening, and we look forward to having you back on our channel soon. And we hope that you have a great rest of your day.